Sports are supposed to be simple. You win or you lose. And history usually remembers the winner, the championships, the trophies, the celebrations. But every once in a while, an athlete does something so extraordinary that the final score almost becomes irrelevant. Imagine scoring 51 points in an NBA Finals and still losing. Imagine throwing for 505 yards in the Super Bowl and walking off the field without the trophy. Imagine scoring a hat trick in a World Cup final and still watching another country celebrate. These aren't stories about failure. They're stories about athletes reaching the absolute peak of human performance, only to discover that sometimes even greatness isn't enough. Today we're looking at some of the greatest individual performances in sports history that somehow ended in defeat. And by the end, we're going to answer one question. What is the greatest losing performance ever? June 2018 NBA Finals. Cleveland Cavaliers versus the Golden State Warriors. But calling these teams equals would be misleading. Golden State had Stephen Curry, Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, 4 future Hall of Fame level players operating inside one of the greatest basketball systems ever assembled. Cleveland, they had LeBron James, and LeBron was about to give Golden State everything he had. From the beginning, you could see the strategy: attack, control the tempo, get downhill, punish the mismatches. LeBron wasn't just scoring, he was orchestrating practically everything Cleveland did. And by halftime, he had 24 points. But he wasn't finished. Golden State kept throwing bodies at him. Durant, Draymond, Iguodala, it didn't matter. LeBron attacked the rim. He hit jumpers. He created shots for teammates. And when Cleveland desperately needed offense, everybody in the building knew where the ball was going. LeBron finished with 51 points, 8 rebounds, and 8 assists. He shot nearly 60% from the field. On the road against Kevin Durant's Warriors in the NBA Finals, and Cleveland had a legitimate opportunity to steal Game 1. Then came one of the most infamous moments in Finals history. George Hill went to the free throw line with Cleveland trailing only by 1. He made the first, tie game. Then he misses the second. J.R. Smith grabs the offensive rebound, and instead of immediately attacking or passing for another shot, he dribbled away from the basketball. LeBron desperately pointed toward the hoop, but the clock had expired. Then we go into overtime. Golden State dominated the extra period. Cleveland lost 124 to 114. Think about that. LeBron James scored 51 points in an NBA Finals game, and it wasn't enough. And psychologically, Cleveland never seemed to recover. Golden State swept the series, but Game 1 remains one of the defining performances of LeBron's career. Not because he won, because for one night he came incredibly close to beating one of basketball's greatest teams almost by himself. Now imagine playing arguably the greatest statistical Super Bowl of your career and still losing. That's exactly what happened to Tom Brady. February 4th, 2018, New England Patriots versus the Philadelphia Eagles. By this point, Brady's reputation was already established. 5 Super Bowl championships, multiple MVPs, the greatest quarterback conversation was essentially over. But against Philly, Brady produced numbers that looked almost impossible. He threw for 505 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. New England produced 613 total yards of offense. Brady repeatedly attacked Philly's secondary. The deep passes, the intermediate throws, the touchdowns. Every time Philly created separation, Brady seemed to drag New England back. But there was one problem. The Patriots couldn't stop the Eagles either. Nick Foles played brilliantly. Philly stayed aggressive. And with New England trailing late, Brady got one final opportunity. This was exactly where he normally became terrifying. The fourth quarter. It's the Super Bowl. Game potentially on the line. Brady dropped back, but before he could deliver another comeback, Brandon Graham knocked the football loose. Philly recovered, and the Eagles eventually won 41-33. Brady had thrown for more than 500 yards and lost. It remains one of the strongest examples of how little an individual can sometimes control the final outcome in a team sport. Before LeBron challenged the Warriors, another undersized superstar walked into the building of a dominant Western Conference champion and refused to be intimidated. Allen Iverson, 2001. Philly versus LA. The Lakers weren't simply defending champions, they were destroying everyone. Shaquille O'Neal was at his physical peak. Kobe Bryant was becoming a superstar. Los Angeles entered the finals having gone 11-0 in the Western Conference playoffs. Nobody had beaten this team. Then Allen Iverson arrived. Iverson scored 48 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds, and 5 steals. And Philly shocked LA in overtime. Now technically, Philly won that particular game. So why is it here on the list? Because Iverson's performance ultimately became one of the greatest examples of individual brilliance inside a losing championship effort. Philly lost the next 4 games. The Lakers won the championship. But nobody remembers that series without remembering what Iverson did, and especially one moment. Overtime. Iverson isolated against Tyronn Lue. Crossover, jumper, bucket. Tyronn Lue fell near Iverson's feet. Iverson stepped over him, and that image became immortal. Philly lost the war, but Iverson owned one of his greatest moments. And so now the box score doesn't always explain exhaustion. Jimmy Butler's 2020 final does. Miami entered the finals against LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and the Los Angeles Lakers. Miami suffered injuries. Goran Dragic went down. Bam Adebayo missed time. But Butler refused to let the series die. Game 5 became his masterpiece. 35 points, 12 rebounds, 11 assists, 5 steals. But the numbers don't capture what happened. Butler played 47 minutes and 12 seconds, almost the entire game. Late in the fourth quarter, he traded possession after possession with LeBron James. LeBron scored, Butler answered. LeBron attacked, Butler attacked. With less than a minute remaining, cameras captured Butler leaning over the baseline barrier, completely exhausted. That image became the story. He looked empty because he had given Miami practically everything he had. The Heat won Game 5, but just 2 nights later, Los Angeles closed the series. Miami lost the championship, yet Butler's performance became the moment that transferred the way many people viewed him, not simply as an all-star, but as someone capable of going toe-to-toe with the greatest players alive on basketball's biggest stage. Now we have to leave basketball and football and enter perhaps the most dramatic championship game on this entire list. December 18, 2022, France versus Argentina, the World Cup final. For roughly 80 minutes, Argentina controlled the match. Lionel Messi scored, Angel Di Maria scored. Argentina led 2-0. France looked finished. Then Kylian Mbappé changed everything. 80th minute, penalty, goal. Approximately 90 seconds later, Mbappé strikes again. Now it's 2-2. The match went to extra time. Messi scored, Argentina regained the lead. France needed another miracle, and at that moment, France would receive another penalty. Mbappé stepped forward, goal, hat trick in a World Cup final. Think about how absurd that is. Before Mbappé, only one man had ever scored a hat trick in a men's World Cup final. Geoff Hurst in 1966. Mbappé had just produced one of the greatest performances the tournament had ever seen. And France still didn't win. The match went to penalties. Mbappé converted his, but Argentina won the shootout. Messi lifted the World Cup, and Mbappé walked away with the golden boot after scoring 3 goals in the final and 8 in the tournament. There might not be a better example of the cruelty of team sports. Mbappé did practically everything a forward could possibly do, but he couldn't take France's penalties for everyone else. Long before LeBron, long before Iverson, there was Jerry West, the man whose silhouette became synonymous with the NBA. 1969 Finals, the Los Angeles Lakers versus Boston Celtics, 7 games. One of basketball's greatest rivalries. West averaged roughly 38 points per game. And in Game 7, well, 42 points, 13 rebounds, 12 assists, a triple-double in Game 7 of the NBA Finals. And yet the Lakers lost. Boston won 108-106. But West had been so extraordinary that something unprecedented happened. He was named Finals MVP. despite being on the losing team. To this day, Jerry West remains the only player in NBA history to win Finals MVP while losing the championship. That tells you everything you need to know about his performance. And this is where these stories become bigger than sports, because we often use two words as though they mean the same thing: failure and defeat. But they're not necessarily the same. LeBron lost game 1, but did he fail? Mbappé lost the World Cup final, but did he fail? Jerry West lost the championship. Did he fail? Sometimes an athlete reaches the absolute limit of what one person can reasonably contribute, and the result still doesn't cooperate. That's the uncomfortable reality of team sports. Michael Jordan could score 63 points against Boston and lose. LeBron can score 51 points and lose. Brady can throw for 505 yards and lose. Mbappé could score 3 goals in the World Cup final and lose. Because greatness can influence the outcome, it cannot always control it. And so which performance was the greatest? If we're ranking pure statistical dominance, there are dozens of candidates. If we're measuring circumstance, pressure, opponents, and stakes, 3 performances separate themselves. Jerry West's 1969 Finals, LeBron James' 51-point masterpiece against Golden State, and Kylian Mbappe's hat trick against Argentina. West dominated an entire championship series. LeBron nearly stole a game from one of basketball's greatest collections of talent. But Mbappé? He scored a hat trick in the World Cup final, with his country repeatedly facing defeat. He converted his penalty in the shootout and France still lost. So if I had to choose just one, Kylian Mbappe's 2022 World Cup final might be the greatest individual performance in a losing effort in modern sports history. And maybe that's why performances like these remain so fascinating. Winning usually creates legends, but occasionally, the performance becomes bigger than the result. The scoreboard says they lost, history remembers something different. It remembers the night one athlete did almost everything humanly possible and discovered that sometimes greatness still isn't enough. And that might be the cruelest thing about sports. You can play the game of your life and still watch someone else lift up that trophy.